Sorry about the late start there, my friends. Tweaking some of the settings for chat. See if I can get it to work there. I'll just park myself over to the side of the screen. I hope all is well in your world. I'm getting feedback in from the broadcast we just did with Pastor Caleb Moore. I guess after the fact, I discovered that, maybe I'd come to understand that he was hoping for more of a conversation about conversation. How do we have conversations? And less of a back and forth about belief, non belief. But I can't help but wonder if we were demonstrating the larger point in the first place. You know, two people of opposing points of view who care passionately about something ending up in the same space and able to even, with spirited voice, conversation, we disagree without becoming enemies. I think we were successful in that. I think that was this has been on my mind lately. And those of you who have watched my show and have listened and who have been a part of the conversations have sort of heard that theme. It's just on my mind. It's what I'm speaking about next week. I'll be in Dallas on Friday night. I'll be in Austin on Saturday. I get to speak as part of Atheist Day at the Capitol Steps in Austin. I'm going to be speaking about how, religion's protected, but it's a private exercise. It's not a government exercise. And then I'll be in Houston on Sunday, and it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be great to get out of the studio and to go travel. I'm driving it, which is relaxing because I get to put audio books on the radio. And my only regret is I'm not going to be able to take Linus with me. Linus is going to stay here and guard the cave. He's going to stay here with Natalie, and they're going to be together. He has become such good medicine for us. He has become so much better than we had ever hoped or anticipated. Having this little animal in our lives has I don't know, he was just there for us. If I was a believer, I would say it was some sort of a, divine thing, perfect timing. Of course, I would be ignoring the fact that I had two dogs who died, before that. But he's smart. He's funny. We go on walks, and he'll come right up when we put his little harness and his vest on. And a listener named Claire crocheted him a blue sweater, so we put his sweater on cold days. And he likes to run the stairs. He's a snuggler. He just curls up to us in the middle of the night and all night, and he's loyal, and he loves to go in the car. We went through a drive-through the other day. It was his first drive-through, and so I wish I could bring him with me because I would. But I'm going to leave him here, and he's going to keep Natalie company. But anyway, Dallas, Austin, Houston, that's coming up. And I'm going to try out some brand new material. I finished the speech just a few hours ago. I think it's finished. And it's going to be interesting because, I'm not going to give too much away because I'm touring with it for a good part of the year before it does go out to YouTube. But I can already tell that the ocean's going to split. You're going to see people who say this is a wonderful and nuanced and necessary approach, and other people are going to be like, screw you, you're trash. And so I'm sort of waiting for both. Fortunately, I'm confident enough in the necessity of the material to not worry too much. There are always going to be naysayers, and I don't want that to stop me from talking about the things that I think are important. And I really do feel sort of a weariness, a cultural weariness about all of the fighting and the hating and the nastiness in this world, and especially online. I mean, I can post anything about anything, anywhere, and people just, I can post almost anything, and people just, I'll look down about 5, 6 comments, and all of a sudden somebody says something provocative, and then somebody responds, and then somebody rallies someone to their side, and someone else quotes a link. And, people their first instinct is to escalate and divide. And I don't know, I'm weird. I'm just weird about it all. I just am tired. Um, oh God, somebody in the comment section's already arguing about something. I'm just I'm just gonna let it go. You see the liberation in doing that? Just let it go. Just let it go. It's a freedom that I have had to remind myself that I need. Because the crusader in me, the activist in me, is like that meme that says, cancel all my meetings. Someone on the internet is wrong. Which is kind of an arrogant position to take, meaning I'm right and I'm going to go do battle for the cause of right. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter and that we shouldn't do battle for the cause of right. I'm just saying, keyboard warriors, is that really what we've reduced ourselves to? Where all we do is sit around all day as malcontents and just mash on this thing. We just mash on it. Just mash on the keyboard. I love my Ergo keyboard, by the way. Shannon Q, I see in the comment section. By the way, congratulations out to Shannon Q, who just hit 10,000 YouTube subscribers. And she was at 1,000 just a few short weeks ago. I think the reason that she is getting so much attention is because she is representing, again, what we want to represent or should want to represent, and that is promotion of good ideas, advocacy for our better fellow human beings, and a genuine desire not to be a shitty human being to other people. And I'm not saying we don't have moments where we mock. I'm not saying that, we can't be sarcastic and we can't be ourselves. And I'm not saying we don't draw attention to the awfulness wherever the awfulness exists. And she does that. But she does so with an overarching umbrella of, I want to help people. I'd rather unite than divide. I'd like to build a bridge rather than burn one. That's huge. And as we showed in the atheist YouTubers interview from a few weeks ago, and they're just a few, there are several more people out there who are online, who are on YouTube, who are activisting in their way. And they've got the Faithless Forum conference coming up in Dallas in April. And Thomas Westbrook and Shannon Q and several others going to be there presenting. I may go just to hang out. I'm not going to speak or anything. I may just go and chill and just be a part of the day if I can. I may be in California that week, but we can be strong, right? Christopher Hitchens was hugely strong, but he wasn't losing his mind all the time, His face wasn't red and he wasn't screaming at the top of his voice and he wasn't, allowing his emotions to guide him from here to there. He was absolutely in control of his emotions, but he was at the same time devastating. And he never lost his compassion for people. I'm not saying he wasn't a flawed guy, but he's a great example. He's a great example. His life remains an example 8 years after his death, almost 8 years after his death, that he can, you can go in and be strong and fight for what's right and be genuinely indignant and even feel outrage about the outrageous without allowing yourself to become this slave to, your jerking knee, so to speak. Anyway, I'm going to see if I can go down here to the comment section. I honestly wish the comment section was a little easier to read on the screen, but I made a few changes, and you know what happens when you make adjustments in your streaming software? It changes everything else, and I didn't actually go in and tweak this before before starting the stream. So let's see. Let me take a look here. Seth, Eric asks, what are your thoughts about atheism within the death care profession? Respectfully handling religious funerals and comforting the bereaved as an atheist? Well, those are two questions. The first is, if you're in of creating these memorial services for other people, their wishes and the wishes mostly of the deceased are paramount. If I'm an atheist and somebody says I want a Hindu service and that's my job, they get a Hindu service. You know, if somebody comes in and they want a Muslim service, if somebody comes in and they're like, we want to prop him up in a, you've seen this. We want to prop him up on his favorite motorcycle because I saw a photograph of someone who had died and they propped him up on a bike. And they had a party. Somebody else was in his favorite clothes. They actually propped him in the corner and had a party. If that's what you want, fine. When it comes to how I comfort people personally, I really try to make it about remembering those we lost and cherishing the love that they hopefully brought into our lives. And saying, I myself, and I use the word I think that when they were here, their life was beautiful enough that, we had that kind of goodness that people expect in another life. I think they brought it to this life. And that's why I'm going to miss them. And, this is like weddings. I think they need to be about the memory of those we've lost. They need to be about honoring those, they need to be about the lives, rather, of those who are participating, who are being honored at that moment. It's weird, now that I'm not a believer in heaven, life is so much more precious. I was trying to communicate that to Pastor Caleb, because I think he operates, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he operates from the, if it's all over in just a few decades, why bother? And I'm always like, that's, to me, makes no sense. It makes no sense. My favorite song is a final note. Should I not enjoy the favorite song? My favorite meal has a final bite and it'll be over. Does that mean I don't enjoy the meal? If I love someone who dies before I do and I lose them early and I don't feel I'll see them again with that love not worth having, the idea that something must be permanent to me, permanent to have value, it's the temporary nature of this life that makes everything so critical. And I feel the urgency. Of trying to maximize the moments and say the words and be who I am. Monkismo said, since nationalism and patriotism are often based on little knowledge of history and facts, but often have real consequences, are they a kind of faith? I don't know if they're a faith. I don't have a problem with patriotism. I don't have a problem with patriotism, love of country. I have a problem with blind patriotism or nationalism. I happen to be born in this subjectively drawn geographical line, therefore I love where I am, is not what I mean by patriotism. I mean patriotism in the sense that you genuinely are thankful for your nation, you love it in the respect that you are willing to acknowledge even its flaws and try to fix those flaws from within, and you feel that it's worth protecting and what's the word I'm looking for? Investing in, so to speak. This has no bearing on anybody. Like, you're not declaring yourself better than any other nation. You see, I think you can be a patriot for your nation, but also be a citizen of the world. And what gets sort of conflated with patriotism here in the Bible Belt is this: we live in the best damn country in the world, and I don't know anything about any of the other countries. I just know that we're great. We're great. We're great. We're great. Did you see that tweet from Trump yesterday? Simultaneous tweets right beside each other. One right after the other. And he said, we need to make America great again. And he said, America is the greatest, something like that. And they're back to back. So either, wait, we're not great, so we need to become great again. By the way, we are great. It makes absolutely no sense. But I have no problem with somebody who wants to, I was looking at a Facebook post from Faisal Saeed al-Mutar, right? He came from Iraq and he ended up here. He's been a citizen of the United States, or he's lived in the United States for 6 years, I think. I hope I'm doing him justice. And he's a human rights advocate who is thankful every day that he escaped Iraq. And he's thankful for the freedoms that we have here in the United States, despite all of our many problems. He has a freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of action and movement. He has the freedom to be able to pursue his dreams. He has that because of his geographic location and because he is here. And he is therefore patriotic about the United States, and he will say so unabashedly. I support that. Good for him. What I don't like is we are insular, we are superior because we're not superior. We are blind to the rest of the world and we see ourselves first before we see the human condition as a whole. And some people think that's a paradox. They think that that's a contradiction to be able to say that you can be a citizen of a nation and the citizen of the world. But I don't think so. I'd like to think that I love my country despite its many flaws and its president. And, um, and I think that, it's not a mutually exclusive discussion. Thanks for the super chats, by the way. Thank you for the support. Let's see. Justin said, do you think the knee jerk reactions we see online are correlated with narcissism? Not all of them. However, there is a lot of good data, and I'm still learning myself about how we formulate opinions, how emotion plays into that for good and for ill, how instinct usually leads and then reason comes after, and why we tend to sort of become these little microcosms, these cliques, these tribes, these mobs, uh, us against them, where we consider ourselves virtuous and right, and they are not just wrong, but they are flat out evil. And they cannot be reasoned with, and they cannot be bargained with, and they will not be able to understand us. And so we've surrendered them, we've just given up on them and sort of written them off and decided that's it. Yeah, why bother? They're garbage, they're trash. There are actual reasons that we do this. And I think social media has amplified those reasons. I'm reading a book now by Dr. Haidt called The Righteous Mind. That is, yeah, I'm just now about a third of the way into it, but it's so freaking good. Talking about our standards for how we determine morality and why we so often sort of cordon ourselves off into these little pods. And then the people in a disagreeing pod are not just bad or wrong, rather, but they're bad people and they're unreachable and they're the devil and we've written them off. And that's just how people are. I think there are some narcissists online. I think there are some people desperate for validation. That's why they're always screaming at the top of their lungs. They're saying, hear me. Some people are frustrated because they don't feel heard in their regular lives, and so they just increase the volume. There are some genuinely toxic people who simply want to ruin it for everybody else. They enjoy stirring the shitstorm. They enjoy the power of being able to derail civil conversations. It's tragic those people exist. I think there's a host of reasons why people do what they do. There was another one down here. Let me take a look and make sure I'm doing my due diligence, my friends. Kent said, have I ever been in a tornado? He saw that I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've been in 2 tornadoes, which is why I have a tornado shelter in my home. First one was the June 8th tornado. I was just a kid, and the sirens were blaring, and I mostly remember just images. We didn't have a shelter in the house. And so when a tornado hits, they say go to an inner room, usually a bathroom or a closet. Stay away from the windows. You go to an inner room. And then if you don't have any real shelter, then you take we took a small twin mattress from one of the kids' rooms and we drug it in there and we just had it over our heads and we're all huddled like in the bathtub. I kid you not. We were all huddled in the bathtub with a mattress over our heads as the tornado literally came. And it kind of bounced around and it skipped over our house. I remember we had these new trees in the front lawn and they were bending over, almost touching the ground. They were that new malleable tree, that wouldn't snap. And when we came out, part of the neighbor's roof was in our yard. And of course, I was a believer at the time. So I was thinking, oh, the Lord saved us. The Lord lent us his divine protection. Screw that poor guy lost half his roof. I don't know if anybody died in that twister or not. But I was in that, and then there was another one a few years later. I remember we looked out the back window, and it was kind of an S shape. It was an S-shaped tornado. And ever since then, I've been fascinated by them. You show me a tornado documentary, I'm in. If I've seen it before, I'm still in. I'll watch it again. I've been storm chasing, not officially, not in any responsible capacity, but we have tornado activity on the radar in this city. I don't anymore, but I used to get in the car with a camera and I used to want to go out and see them. I was I was just fascinated by them. Of course, now with a little perspective, I realize I was part of a problem. I was potentially congesting an area where emergency vehicles might need to go. There might be downed power lines in the road. It was just hugely irresponsible. But my younger self really wanted to, to go and see one. And even now, every spring, and we're coming into that time of year where we see, tornadoes in this part of the country. And I've got an underground shelter. I can fit 8 people in it comfortably, probably 25 uncomfortably. It was a couple of years ago. We'd rescued a bird. It was me, it was Natalie, it was the kids who came over because they knew it was going to be nasty and they knew we had a shelter. Their significant others, rat, dog, Henry, cat. Getting a cat into a storm shelter, that's a trick. And we had a bird. We rescued this starling, I guess, that had fallen out of a nest, and so we had it in a little cage. We all of us are down there in the storm shelter as the sirens are going off, and you could feel the garage door. Was just kind of doing this, and the twister actually touched down. I think it was 5 miles away, so we were okay. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've been through 2 of them, and honestly, while I hate the idea of loss of life and property, and they do tremendous damage, there's an attraction to seeing one. There's a IMAX film by that guy, the tornado chaser, what's his name? Sean Casey, who he spent years with this special vehicle trying to get a tornado to pass right over his vehicle while he shot in IMAX format, the twister coming to him and through him. And he finally got the shot. And there is an IMAX film of this, and it's not showing like in a major screen anywhere that I know of. I don't know. Can someone look that up? If Sean Casey's, I think it's Sean Casey was his name. Can you rent that on Amazon or I guess I could go look, but anyway, forgive me. I love to talk about twisters. Back to the chat. Let me take a quick look. Thank you again for the super chats from YouTube. Greatly appreciated, my friends. This helps to compensate for the demonetization that is done by YouTube. I swear. They've demonetized, I don't know how many of the videos that the recent shows. Not the Caleb Moore one. There's another one. The one before that. Oh, God, my memory's terrible. Ancient wisdom said, I never understood why people continue to live in an area known for catastrophic and deadly tornadoes. Oh, dude, this is an easy one. I mean, if I'm in California, I got earthquakes. If I'm in Florida, I got hurricanes. You're going to find problems everywhere you go. You go further north and you're looking at severe weather in terms of snow, blizzards, and whatnot. I mean, everybody's got their sort of cross to bear unless you live in San Diego, which is beautiful. But, the cost of living here is good, and it's sort of my home, So, yeah, I mean, I might leave someday. Okay. Did anyone find the name of the film? Tornado Alley is the name of the IMAX film. Does anyone know if that's rentable in any capacity? Can you go and find it? Blue Star said, what's your opinion of Bart Ehrman? I think he is a tremendously smart and wise guy. I think his books, or most of his books, are really helpful books, specifically Jesus Interrupted and Forged. I think he's much too smug when it comes to talking about Jesus mythicists. I don't think they deserve to be brushed off the way he does. And the way he does it is, well, all contemporary historians, all credible historians know that there was a real guy named Jesus. I don't think that's how you determine. I think you go a little deeper, and I think you have to look at the data. And more, some mythicists like Dr. Price and Richard Carrier and Dave Fitzgerald and his book Nailed and Jesus Mything in Action have some pretty good, at least arguments that we should really look at hard, and see, is it real? Is it I'm searching for the words today. Is it viable that the Jesus story came out of absolute myth, was borrowed from previous celestial deities, and was not based on a charismatic guy who walked the shores of Galilee? I mean, is a if there is a possibility of that, I don't think you dismiss those who are saying it simply because they are now in the minority. That's not how data works. It's not how the facts work. Uh, yeah, he laughed at Dr. Robert Price, I think, when they did the debate, and Price did not do well in that debate. And Price has he's a generous man and a kind man, and I think a very intelligent man. But he seems kind of a Fox News Trump supporter, and so that's problematic. Do I think religion will go extinct? Sem asks. Never. As long as there is human imagination and the ability to make money at the end of an offering plate, as long as people are coping with the insanity of this life, there will always be some who lean to religion. But I do think we can marginalize it. I think we can expose it for what it is. And I think we can, most importantly, show people a better way. And that's the ticket, right? It's not enough to go out and say, religion's stupid. Religion's debunked. What we have to do is say, the real world is so much more satisfying. And I think, despite its challenges, I really do think it is. I don't think we have to lie to ourselves or our children to have a beautiful life. But I think religion will always be here in one form or another. I think it's just going to become more fringe, more marginalized, less critical, certainly less fundamental. And we're seeing that now in the 30 and under crowd. And their churches are bleeding these 30 and unders, wondering, what are we going to do? And so they're trying to adapt in some way to try to re-attract the young people. I just said 30 and under is young. This is where I'm at in my life, 50, almost 51 years old. I've got I don't know if you can see it. I got a gray streak that's starting right here, and it's getting a little more intense all the time. So by the time I'm speaking in Texas in 3 years, I'll look like Mrs. Munster. Just gonna have a big blonde streak. I'm thinning, and oh God, it's happening. It's like you look in the mirror every day and you just think, can I smooth this out a little bit? And then you see the receding hairline and you say, that's too smooth, too much. Every day it's like looking in the petri dish of impending old age and seeing something new develop. But, I agree with Dawkins, when he said something like, yeah, we live here and then we die, but if we die, it's a good thing because it means we got to be alive in the first place. I totally butchered his quote. I totally butchered what he had said. But yeah, I mean, if, one day I'll cash in, fine. Ed said, do you think the discovery of intelligent life on other planets will destroy or bolster people's belief in a god or gods? Oh, I think the fundamentalists will never be. They'll never. I knew a guy who was going to write a sci-fi novel, and it was actually kind of a clever concept about the idea that God had created an Adam and an Eve on several different planets. Like, this was not the only Adam and Eve, but there were other parts in a large galaxy where God had established a sort of a home base. I don't know if it was a garden, and God had created an original Adam and Eve for that planet. And so, I think fundamentalists they'll say it's a scientific conspiracy, it's bogus, you can't prove it. Or they'll say that, well, of course, we wouldn't be the only ones here. Maybe they have their own salvation story, or maybe they never sinned in the first place, if only. So, no. I think people and they protect beliefs for emotional reasons, and they can really do a tap dance to try to defend those beliefs. I don't know, it might shake a few people. There might be a few fundamentalists, but largely, I mean, have you seen a lot of success out there when new data comes forward? It's like showing the Earth is a sphere data to a flat earther. I just watched the documentary called Behind the Curve on Netflix about the flat earthers. Now, it's not a pro flat earth film. You should see it. It's on Netflix, and it's amazing because they follow these flat earthers, and they are debunking flat earth with the experiments they are attempting to prove a flat earth, okay? So they actually will conduct experiments. They will see that the earth is not flat, and instead of saying, oh, we need to adjust our point of view, they say, shit, we need to alter the experiment so we can get the result that we expect. And they do it more than once in the film. It's amazing. They have I'll just tell you, because it's not a big surprise. They're shooting a laser, right? They're shooting a laser across a long distance, and they have somebody at 17 feet above sea level, okay? And they are shooting a laser, and then they move somebody way down here to receive the laser, and the laser does not appear. This is supposed to prove that the Earth is absolutely flat. Instead, of course, the Earth is arcing down, so the laser goes over it and doesn't even begin to hit the target on the other side. And they just look at each other like, well, shit, that sucks. I guess we need to change the experiment. It's amazing. And yet, did they change their position? They were emotionally invested, many of them financially invested in the idea of a flat Earth. They love the conspiracy narrative that it's us against them, right? It's us versus this big enterprise that has sold the lie of the moon landing. Speaking of the moon landing, there is, and I think it's also in IMAX, a new film called Apollo 11. Now, I know if you've seen all the footage or most of the footage about Apollo 11 over the past half century, you're like, not again, not again. But some 70 millimeter footage from all around the preparation for the mission, the launch of the mission to the moon, the journey to the moon, landing on the moon, and coming home. 70 millimeter film footage was shot and apparently was lost and never used, never seen. They unearthed it, they found it, and they created a feature film using it and some 35 millimeter and 16 millimeter film as well. And there's no narrator. There's minimal music. They just put the pieces together. And it starts with the big launcher, and it's got the big rocket on it. Was it the Atlas that took them to the moon? And the thing is going, and to see it, not in fuzzy video or not in 16 millimeter, but in full 70 millimeter clarity, to see Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins with absolute clarity, to be able to, it's like getting in a time machine and going back to those moments. I get goosebumps now just thinking about it. I was in the theater thinking, I've never seen any of this like this ever before. And I was all in. I'll tell you, when the rocket launches and when they land the module on the moon, it's just staggering. And it's a reminder of what we can accomplish with ingenuity and perseverance and some human cooperation. If you get a chance to see Apollo 11, do not wait for the video at home. Do not wait for the video at home. Get your ass to the theater. It'll just knock your socks off. It will absolutely blow you away. The LEM was the eagle. What was the, and the eagle landed, right? Is that what they called it? The LEM. What they called the, Michael Collins drove the craft that was orbiting the moon while the two were on the moon. What they call that? Of course, you see this, and they're having to orbit the Earth to pick up enough speed to slingshot to the moon. And even then, the flat earthers won't accept the idea that the Earth is not flat. There are some people, I think, that it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Heavy Metal Zombie Pilot says, have you ever watched the Faces of Death movie? For those who aren't familiar with it, back in the 80s, in the heyday of home video, VHS video, there was a phenomenon wrapped around a video that allegedly showed real life death. Now, this is before the internet and all that. And it's proposed to show people dying in different ways. And, we have a fascination with death. It is this sort of taboo, especially in the United States. It's something we don't talk about. Even in documentary films, I think these days, they'll show wounded, but they rarely show a dead body. And so there was a documentary film called Faces of Death that released, and it proposed to show real life death, the guy in an electric chair and something else. And as I understand it, I saw part of the first one on video forever ago, but I think it's faked. They show a lot of some of those driver training videos from the 1950s that show real life car wrecks with a body inside. They were trying to frighten kids into being better drivers. But as I understand it, I think the first one was mostly faked footage, and I was not interested in the rest. And the idea of watching someone die, it's not. I mean, I'm interested in death and subjects related to death, but I'm not. I don't need to see somebody die. It's not where I'm at. Somebody asked if this was just another rambling Seth diatribe. Oh, you have no idea. I wish I could get the calls in here, but right now we just have the chat. Stephen said, do you believe the deities could have been extraterrestrials and all the miracles could have been higher technology? I think I've seen that movie. I think I've seen that film. Crimson says, new atheist here, love this channel. It's clearly more intellectual than any superstitional, spiritual, or whatever religions are out there. Intellectual is not a word I'd use to describe myself. I'm a storyteller. I'm a questioner, let's call it. I'm on a journey. I tell you, a lot of the best shows that we do have me just asking questions because I'm learning along with the audience. So I wouldn't use the word intellectual when it comes to me. I wouldn't do that. Okay, one quick look at the chat to see if there's anything that you would like to say or bring up or something else before we call it a day. Who am I debating next? I don't have anybody on the roster. I'll talk to almost anybody. But, do people come to this channel for debate? I think they go to the Atheist Experience for that. They come here, I think, for storytelling and community and to be entertained. So, I mean, did you enjoy the exchange with Pastor Caleb? You tell me. Would you want more of that? Because after a while, we run into the fact that I think the Atheist Experience probably does it better. And that's really not my interest, to sit around and we can debate the Bible all day. We can talk about the historicity of Jesus. We can get into the contradictions in the book of Genesis and in the insanity in the book of Revelation. We can talk about, the God of the gaps and the argument from needless suffering and the morality argument and the scientific argument and cosmological argument. And, we can do that, but I'm really more about stories. I've got a great story that's releasing next week. In fact, it's a story about a guy who escaped a very oppressive Islamic situation and feared for his life. And in kind of a twist, instead of just straight up interviewing the guy right off the bat. I'm going to take you into his mind. I'm going to take you into his life. I'm going to take you into those moments when he was genuinely afraid and struggling with what he was going to do next. And the show is called What They Don't Know Won't Kill Me. It releases to patrons on Sunday. It releases to everybody else on Tuesday. That's what I'm interested in doing most of. Robert said, will my Atheist Day in Austin be made live or recorded for later? I'll have a video camera. I might try to get a video of at least my presentation. I'm guessing everybody else is going to be shooting. The ACA is going to be shooting video, but I really don't know. Antisocial Atheist said, I enjoyed Seth co-hosting the AXP Atheist Experience. That was fun. I was there for their 1000th episode. Forgive me if I say your name wrong. Is it Khan? Do you think the fact that metaphysical narratives help people cope with hardship productively is enough to keep healthy forms of religious belief when secular philosophy may not be as effective? I think another version of that question is, do you think it's okay for people to lie to themselves to cope or to think magically to cope? And I just don't think so. I don't think you have to deal in the metaphysical, and I don't think you have to, I heard somebody who was debating, was it on Bill Maher's show, and she was saying that life's hard and you have to make up stories to survive or to cope. And I just don't think you have to make up stories. I understand why we do. I understand why some people think that they will see their child again in heaven. I understand why people think that they'll have a brand new body and live forever and have a mansion and have all kinds of goodness. And I understand why people want to feel like somebody out there is in control, but I don't think it's healthy to construct that stuff simply because we're not dealing. I think the better answer is to learn to deal. And the way to learn to deal is to understand how we think, why we think, to discover the truth, the facts as best we can, to root ourselves in the real world, and to remember that we are here for each other. And that's a huge one, because right now we're in a hugely divided time. Everybody's splintering off. And I think we have to try to find commonalities, opportunities for us to come together like real people, like human beings, and celebrate and participate in the human condition. Anyway, thank you very much for watching the live stream. I hope it's been enjoyable for you, my friends. I will see you in Dallas, in Austin, and in Houston, Texas. All the details for those events are at my personal website. Go to sethandrews.net/events, and I'll see you there.